Good morning and welcome to All Faiths service this morning. It is Sunday, March 29th. We have no announcements this morning, but as usual, as always, we want you to know that no matter who you are, where you are on your spiritual journey, or no matter whom you love, you are always welcome here at All Faiths. So please join in and sing, enter, rejoice, and come in. Our chalice lighting words this morning are from Amy Williams Clark. We gather in this time of uncertainty, full of the unknown as angst closes in upon us. We light this chalice with a flame that draws us together. With this flame, we cut through the darkness of isolation, and we are warmed by the fires of our interconnection. For this moment, for our time together this morning, this radical moment, we find a certainty within the noble bonds of love and community. What is it that calls you here this morning, that calls you onward, that calls you inward, that leads you homeward? What is it that gives you the power to make the change, to ask that question, to take that journey? What is it that says you have done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, that holds you up in hard times? It is relationship. It is the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, this space, our truths, and our hearts. It is good to be together. When we are together, we share our joys and sorrows with one another by lighting candles. Today, I ask you that you light a candle at home. And as we share some silence together, that you meditate and think of your joys and sorrows. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Our reading this morning is titled, There is Still Hope for Mankind by Morgan Mitchell. You see a homeless man begging for money on the streets. What do? For most of us, the answer is to walk straight past him or her and refusing to feed whatever addiction we think they have. Others won't even look at them in the eye, pretending that they don't exist. And the remaining minority will give them what spare change we have in our pockets. I was a member of that minority growing up. I believed in strangers and that it was my duty to help them. This was my belief for the first 13 years of my life, right up until my trip to San Francisco. I saw a girl holding a sign on the street who didn't look much older than I was, and as I approached her, I noticed the sign said, "It's my 18th birthday. Please help me have a meal tonight." This broke my heart. For my birthday, I asked for presents and cake while this girl wanted a meal to eat, and I decided to give her a little bit more than she had asked for. And I wanted to give her my vacation money. My parents advised against it. But they told me to do with my money as I please. I gave it to her and felt good about myself as I went to dinner that night. Walking home, however, we passed the girl one last time, and this time I noticed the sign had been flipped. The sign read, "It's my 18th birthday. Please help me so I can spend it on cigarettes, porn, and fun." Needless to say, I cried myself to sleep that night, and that was the day I started to doubt humanity, and was also the day I stopped giving money to strangers. A few weeks ago, I had an experience that changed my beliefs for the better. My parents, brother, and I were on a cruise and had taken an excursion on a ferry to the island of St. John's for the day. We later returned to the port for that ferry to take us back to the ship, only to find that it had left without us. We entered panic mode, and knowing we only had 1 hour to make it back to the ship and that a taxi trip took longer than that, a visibly needy man saw us struggling and took us under his wing, and he walked us to another port and personally found us a way to ensure we would get back to the ship on time. And after he helped us, a typical move in my cynical mind would have been to ask for money in return. And this man, though, did nothing of the sort. He simply looked my mom in the eye and sincerely asked her, "Will you please pray for me?" That's when exactly I realized what I believe. They always say that there is no hope for this generation. I think they're wrong, that it only takes one person to beat the expectations and to prove that. It's easy for us to stereotype the whole bunch of us based on a few bad ones. What's harder is to accept that the nature of humans is their inability to be perfect. I believe in the goodness of humanity and that there is still hope for it. I believe in strangers and helping them out and when they seem to deserve it. Now when I see a stranger in need on the street, especially one playing music or telling jokes, I think twice before passing him or her without notice. And I challenge you to do the same. And so ends the reading. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There We are all latching on to the same things these days, the same thing. Hope. Hope for our health, hope for our national safety, hope that a leader arises in this crisis, hope that we will soon see the other side of this epidemic. That is what is on all of our minds right now, but we haven't reserved hope for only this crisis. Hope is part of our Unitarian Universalist theology. We live in hope. Live in hope in the here and the now. We create justice and build a world that we dream about, where there is equity and compassion. It is hope that motivates us to live this way. And we hope because we know there is more love somewhere. We hope. So let us return to this morning's reading. We learned that it only takes one person, one interaction, one action to remind us that there is hope for mankind. We experienced a poor example of this last week. A reporter asked our president what he might say to Americans who are afraid. The president became angry, lashed out, and shamed the reporter. I say the president panicked. If you can't access compassion or empathy or decent emotion, you don't know what to do other than panic and act out, fight or flight. And watching this interaction brought me back to a place where we've been since the 2016 election results were announced. Hopelessness. How will we politically, emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually survive within this hopelessness? But there is hope. There is hope for humanity. Hope lives. School bus drivers are delivering lunches to students. Businesses are being offered no-interest loans. Neighbors are shopping for the most vulnerable and compromised in our communities. Restaurants are feeding out-of-work service workers. Companies are choosing to maintain the livelihoods of their employees. And all of this represents hope. And it restores hope for humanity. And hope lives. These examples remind me of one of the sources of our Unitarian Universalist theology, which is direct experience. You see, we are allowed to hope because we've experienced people rising to the occasion and laying down their swords and outstretching their hands. 19th century Unitarian minister William Ellery Channing named something very important in our Unitarian theology that relates to salvation, and that is, how is it that we will be saved? He calls it salvation by character. Salvation by character. We can save ourselves, and hope must be the underpinning of this idea. Unitarian Universalist minister James Ishmael Ford tells us, now while that precisely the term hope means has changed a bit over the years, for us, I think we can hear that our salvation, our healing from the hurts and bruises of life, the woundedness we experience, our shortcomings we're so painfully aware of, our failed ideas, so often, and all the harm that follows, these failures of our deepest aspirations for ourselves and the world, he says, is resolved in how we choose to live and who we become through what we do. And who we become through what we do. That is salvation by character. Healing, the great healing, is in our hands. And Channing preached this good news from the rooftops. And who we are counts. What we do counts. And one who has hope lives differently. To have hope is to want an outcome that makes your life better in some way. It not only can help us make a tough present situation more bearable, but also can eventually improve our lives, because envisioning a better future motivates you to take the steps to make it happen. Whether we think about it or not, hope is part of everyone's life. Everyone hopes for something. It is an inherent part of being human. And hope helps us define what we want in our futures and is part of the self-narrative about our lives we all have running inside our minds. The definition of hope can differ depending on the person doing the talking. When people speak about hope in a spiritual context, it might mean believing good things will happen through their faith, through a higher power. They might direct their hopes outward in prayer. For others, it might mean always looking on the bright side, seeing challenges as opportunities, and in other words, always hoping for the best. Our dictionaries define hope close to the word wish, to cherish a desire with anticipation, to want something to happen or to be true. Whatever the details, hope in general means a desire for things to change for the better and to want that situation better very much. Hope, though, is not the same as optimism. An optimist generally is more hopeful than others. But on the other hand, the most pessimistic person you may ever meet may still be hopeful about something. Hope is a very specific and focused, usually on just one issue. Such as, I hope I get that job I interviewed. I hope they call me. Or for that little kid during the holidays, I hope that I get that bike that I wanted. Most people associate hope with a dire situation. People hope to get out of difficult circumstances, such as the circumstances we are in today. And that is often when people do find themselves hoping fervently. But hope can also provide the key to making everyday life better. That's because just envisioning something hopeful gives a person a moment of happiness. It can make present difficulties much easier to bear. An example of that is reported by the American Psychology Association. They say children who grew up in poverty but had success later in life all had one thing in common: hope. And Dr. Valerie Malholmes, who worked on the research, said, hope involves planning and motivation and determination to get what one hopes for. And in a way, having hope links your past and present to the future. You have a vision of what you hope will happen. And whether it does or not, just envisioning it can make you feel better. And if it's something you can somewhat control, like the kids working to get out of poverty, then hope can motivate you to take whatever steps you need to take. Author Neil Burton, who writes about emotions, writes that he always asks patients for what they hope for. Because if they say nothing, then that is a sign of depression or worse. And having hope to the very act of being a human being, as Judith Rich writes, hope is a match in a dark tunnel, a moment of life, just enough to reveal the path ahead and ultimately the way out. We all have stories of hope, so our question today is, what is your story of hope? The Reverend Mark Worth tells us, when everything is going wrong, what does get you through? What sustains you through the loss of a job, the death of a parent or sibling, a cancer diagnosis? When your heart is broken, what gets you through? It's not a rhetorical question. In your darkest hour, what is your story of hope? And there are a few questions that can be as important as this. The Reverend Robert Hardy's Unitarian minister says his definition of religion is people telling stories of hope. That's people like us, telling stories that sustain us, that inspire us, stories that give us courage in difficult times. And as Unitarian Universalists, we search for stories of hope. The Buddha almost lost hope when he came to realize that all people get sick, all people grow old, and all people die. But he searched for an answer until he found enlightenment, and then he became the Buddha, the one who is awake. Even Jesus cried out on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me?" He felt alone and abandoned, but 3 days later, his followers somehow experienced his continuing presence among them, and something new was born. And so, while I don't know about you, I have faith in the future. And when I talk of faith, I don't mean belief in the way that some people do. By faith, I mean trust. It's not so much a theological position. It's really a matter of confidence. Faith, trust, and confidence. It is, as a Warsaw ghetto survivor said, "I believe in the sun even when it is not shining." Bernice Johnson Reagan of the singing group Sweet Honey in the Rock tells us how songs lifted the spirits of civil rights marchers and workers during the 50s and 60s, raising their voices with freedom songs in the gospel cadence of the black church. Reagan and her fellow marchers could feel the songs and change the atmosphere. The freedom songs built community, nurtured courage, and fostered hope. I wonder if that's realistic. Can we sing ourselves into a better world? Can we live out our stories of hope? And I say yes, we can. It is my faith that we can build a better world. And I have hope for the future and trust that we can live in justice, harmony, in peace, and in health. We cannot expect a world free of illness, suffering, or pain, but we can sustain one another in communities of respect, compassion, and loving kindness. I have this faith, and I believe that my hope is realistic. Hope lives. May it be so. If you're new to us, before our offertory, I offer a joke because I believe that we should laugh in church, and I believe that laughter brings generosity. And I also want to thank all of you who have been contributing during this time. We're grateful, and we're able to maintain a presence in our community. Our joke this morning comes from Kendra Maroon. "I was on a long line at 7:45 a.m. today at the grocery store that opened up at 8 for seniors only. And a young man came from the parking lot and tried to cut in front of the line, but an old lady beat him down with her umbrella and sent him back to the parking lot. He returned and tried to cut in again, but an old man pushed him back with his umbrella and rolled him away back into the parking lot. And as he approached the line for the third time, the man said, 'If you don't let me unlock the door, you'll never get in there.'" The morning offering will now be given.
Birds they sang at break of day. Start again, I hear them say. It's so hard to just walk away. The birds they sang, all the choir. Start again a little higher. It's a spark in a sea of gray. The sky is blue. Dream that lie till it's true. Then taking back the punch I threw. My arms turn wings of those clumsy things. our way.
Before I offer our closing words this morning, I would like to thank Joseph for his music, Regina Kilmartin, who was behind the camera, and Ed Elrod on sound. First, let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. May whatever we engage in this Sunday afternoon, may it help restore us, our connections to one another, our sense of hope and beauty and fun in this world, and our deep knowing that we have to take care of ourselves and each other with love and joy if we are to soulfully survive the world's mayhem. Blessed be.
On your case, I could offer you a warm embrace to make you feel my love. When the evening shadows and the stars appear, and there's no one there to dry your tears, make your dreams come true. There's nothing